Hello, my friends. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Katie Taylor. I'm a certified child life specialist. This episode, I interview Brittany. She is not only a NICU nurse, but actually a NICU parent. And she walks us through what it was like to actually give birth to preemie twins in the hospital that she was just working at the day before. In addition to that, we also have a free NICU sibling guide out today. It's actually a NICU sibling handbook. You can download it on the Support Spot app, which you can find on the App Store. We have so many amazing NICU resources on there. We have a ton of NICU podcast episodes, NICU infant stimulation cards in black and white and red. We have NICU sibling activities to help siblings feel more connected to the sibling that they're not able to meet so much in the NICU. And then tons of resources for moms to help really promote that bonding and feel empowered when you're in the NICU, rather feeling like you're completely out of control. All of those can be on the Support Spot app. But our NICU sibling handbook is live today, and it's so gorgeous. It's one of my favorite resources that we've created. It's just a guide for you parents to really facilitate a conversation between your kids at home and the sibling that they're not able to see as often because they're in the NICU. It gives them tons of information about what actually goes on in the NICU, what happens there. I have been a child life specialist in the NICU. I was one part-time child life specialist to 80 babies. And there was just no way every single family was going to get the attention and support that they deserved. So that's why we created this platform of podcasts and resources and stories and information for parents so you feel less alone and less isolated as you walk through this. My conversation with Brittany Thrift will exactly do that with you today. She is one of the most upbeat, optimistic, joyful people and is the perfect person to be doing her job, which she says changed dramatically after she went through the experience of being a NICU parent herself. Let's go ahead and get started. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Child Life on Call. This podcast is a safe place for parents to share their stories about what it's like to have a child that has a medical experience, diagnosis, disease, and or everything in between. We know there's power in sharing stories, and that power multiplies when you can listen to other parents who have walked a similar path to yours. Giving and getting advice is great, but hearing how another parent navigates the complexities and nuances of healthcare is even better. As a child life specialist, my role is to support, validate, and provide emotionally safe spaces for kids and their families, and I am so honored to be on this journey with you. In addition to parent stories, we sprinkle in some expert episodes every now and again that have content for both parents and professionals in the field of healthcare, all with the mission to empower parents to be confident advocates and partners with the care team during healthcare experiences. We're so glad you're here. So grateful to have you because you have both the nursing and the mom perspective, and like you
Absolutely.
have the entrepreneurial spirit, I can
I
tell.
do. Oh, yes.
Yes,
I
I know that
absolutely
well.
do.
Well, why
Yeah.
don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about you and your family and where you come from?
Yeah, so we live in Austin, but I am a NICU nurse at the local I don't wanna say where, but,
Yeah, yeah.
the local children's hospital here, in Austin, Texas, and I have worked there almost 6 years now, which is crazy because I feel like in nursing and medical, you're always learning, and it's always it doesn't matter how long you've been there, you're always learning, so it's like
Yes,
6 years, but only 6 years, you know what I mean? But a lot has
right.
happened in that time frame. But I actually started out as a pediatric surgical trauma nurse, and I still do that. But I think 2 years into my career, I cross-trained to NICU, so now I do both, and I can't give up my pediatrics and I can't give up my babies, so I get to play both parts, and it's really incredible. But that's why I was so compelled by your podcast because child life is huge. Child life is I have so many things I wanna thank you for because and I'll get into that. I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but,
No, all good.
um, just how, like, child life has affected me and my just professional life, and my ability to be a better provider. So we'll definitely get into that. But yeah, in 2022, I had my sweet little babies. I was actually on shift in the NICU 3 nights in a row. And I was making a joke to the respiratory therapist. I was like, hey, if they come, you better be ready because, we've got some preemies. And so made a joke. And then, of course, the next day I delivered. And
Oh my
luckily,
gosh.
I live about 30 minutes from the hospital, so I was at a NICU that was affiliated with the place that I work with. Some of the nurses, were all the same, which was incredible. It was like having family there.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so delivered there, which was nice because I was in grad school at the time. I was so burnt out. I have one more class until I finish my NP, so that'll be very exciting. But I was
Wow.
doing grad school, and working, part-time nights. It was chaotic. So I'm glad I got the scenery of a different NICU, but the same providers. So that was really nice. But yeah, so after my experience of seeing kind of the other side of the isolette, I was just it just changed everything for me. And what started off as kind of like postpartum therapy of like writing and, all of that. I've always really been big into writing, but that was kind of like that postpartum, just what I wanted, writing things about my story that I didn't want to forget. And then I looked at what I was writing and I was like, oh my God, this would be such a cute book to make and read to my babies and let them know like the stuff that they overcame and just like what that NICU experience was like and what it's like to be a mom and not take home your baby the second they're born or not even see
Yeah.
them, and your whole family gets to see them before you and you get to see pictures of them while you're recovering, and just all of these mental things that kind of tack on to postpartum depression and all that. And so I just wanted to join that community of people, and it's way bigger than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to be in that space. But yeah, so I wrote something down and it just became cuter, and I was like, let me make it rhyme, And
Yeah.
then I started looking into all of these things, and I was looking into self-publishing, and I was like, oh, well, I can approve everything if I'm the boss, so why not just start your own publication company? So that's kind of how that started. But yeah, it was published this month, which is crazy that August is already almost over, but we've sold a little over 200 copies. So I'm excited that people
Wow.
are, and we've sold a lot of coloring books too. So it's just really cool to see how it's positively affecting these women and like just this unfiltered, cute keepsake that changes the perspective of the NICU and all the resentment we kind of carry as moms and parents of
Mm.
that space. So now it's just, I love my job. I love what I do. I love being a mom. I love how being a mom has changed how I am as a healthcare provider.
Yeah.
I feel like I was always very in tune with, okay, this is somebody's child. You treat them like family. You go the extra mile to make them feel safe and secure and whatever. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, if my kid needed an IV, what would I be doing extra that
Right.
I'm not doing for a patient? You know what I mean? So
Right.
kind of putting that into perspective of, okay, this baby is kind of mine. They're in my care, and
Yeah.
it's up to me to make sure that I would be doing everything I would with my own child. And so now that I have that perspective, it's changed everything for me. It really has, in the best
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
would love to first of all, there's so many things that I resonate with what you said and, kind of your ability to be both a surgical nurse and a NICU nurse. I feel
yeah,
like that's kind of the special sauce to longevity is that, like,
absolutely.
you're not just doing one thing after the other
Oh,
and you can change it up, which is great.
exactly.
Um, how old were your babies when they were born? And take us kind of back to, you mentioned a couple things just about your
Yeah,
family being able to see them before you did
yeah,
and what that felt like. Take us back to that time.
yeah. So, gosh, started, I was bleeding, and I was like, okay, I don't want to be that crazy patient that calls over everything. You know what I mean? Kind of like freaking out. And then I was like, okay, no, you're having twins. This is a high risk pregnancy. You need to take this seriously. And I had a appointment at, I think it was like 2:30, and they were born at 3:40. So it was
Wow.
crazy. But I was 33 and 0 that day. So it was Monday morning. I loved looking forward to Mondays because that's when we were a closer week, like gestation wise. And so I was like,
Yeah.
oh, yay, we're 33 and 0. This is so exciting. My goal was to please keep them in there until 35, at least 35 weeks.
Right.
So yeah, so they were born at 33 and 0. And knowing kind of the background I have with NICU, that could be a kid that is intubated. It could be a kid that's on CPAP. It could be a kid that's on room air and perfectly fine and feeds a little bit and goes home. The realm and the range of possibility was kind of just running through my head of, okay, this could go
Yeah.
one way or it can go a complete other way. But it was actually such a blessing when I wheeled in. I'll never forget my OBGYN who said, he looked at me like deer in the headlights and he was like, "I feel fetal parts." And I was like, "What does that mean? What does that what does that
Yeah.
mean? Like, does that mean like my water broke? Does that mean like I still don't even understand." It was such a like adrenaline and rush that I was like, "I don't know what's happening." And he looked at me and he was like, "You're gonna meet your babies this afternoon." And I was like, "Oh my God." Like I mean, just the adrenaline of it all was just amazing.
Yeah.
And I had this kind of overwhelming peace that everything was gonna be okay. I think it would have been a little different if we were in the 20s, like 26, 27, I
Yeah.
think knowing, okay, we're at 33, we've
You
got some
know
good
the doctor's
development.
taking care of you, like, there's,
Yes.
like, I love that.
Yeah, so I was kind of calming myself down with knowledge and also not really thinking about it. I was like, ignorance is kind of bliss. Like, let's just have these
Yeah.
babies. This is fine, right? Twins are
Yeah.
early. This is normal. Let's go. And it was so funny as I was wheeling in, they had me in the wheelchair and they were wheeling me in. And one of my favorite neos, I'll mention her. Her name's Dr. G. She's absolutely incredible. She looks at me, she kind of looked at me like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
And because she's a neo that I get to work with on the daily, and she's absolutely incredible. But she saw me in the wheelchair and just looked at me like, "What the heck are you doing here?" I was like, "I'm here to have my babies." So that was kind of a
Yeah.
warm moment of familiarity and
Yeah.
just looking at her and seeing that familiar face of this person that I trust and I've worked with her at bedside doing incredible crazy things in crazy different scenarios and just feeling that overwhelming like, "Oh my gosh, okay, like wow."
Yeah.
Um and I remember everything was just okay, and I loved my labor and delivery nurses, like, I still talk to them to this day.
Mm.
One held me while I got my epidural, and it was just the most amazing moment to me, and it was just in chaos, it was
Yeah.
very beautiful, which is crazy in an emergency C-section with premature twins. I had this overwhelming just peace,
Mm.
which was really special to me. But yeah, they were born. My husband
Mm.
um, barely made it into the OR. So that was such a blessing when I saw him. I was like, thank gosh. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, yay, you're here. But my daughter came out, and my husband's very calm in chaos. He's amazing. But she wasn't doing so well. So she was brought to the warmer. They were stimulating her, bagging her essentially. And she had her own little resuscitation sheet, which I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, like, is everything
Ye
okay? Is everything
right.
okay? And my husband was like, it's okay. Like, she doesn't look great, but they're working on her, And
Yeah.
like now we look back and he's like, babe, she did not look good. And I'm like, well, thank you for not telling me that in the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the scene was great. And then my but I still had that overwhelming piece, which was so strange. I still can't pinpoint it. I just knew,
Yeah.
okay, I'll see you in a minute.
Yeah.
Um, and then my son, he was pulled out, taken out of the OR because there wasn't enough room. And so I don't know who cut his cord. I don't know anything about any of that. And I don't know why that bothers me to this day. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, so there wasn't enough room for twins because of the amount of people that it takes for like, that's the other thing is, like, when you have a
Yeah,
C-section or anything, the
so
amount of
many
people that
people.
have to be like, each baby has their own team when they're
Yeah.
preemies, and they're just prepared for everything. So was it, like, literally, like, there just wasn't enough room?
I don't know. I didn't have like a great line of sight. I just
Yeah,
remember just, okay, baby boy, baby B is out. We're going to take him out. And I was just like, okay, like it didn't even dawn on me. I was like, okay, they'll be out, outside of
yeah,
the room. I don't know. And then they had him in the big transport isolette where it's clear and I got to barely see his little nose and they took him off.
yeah.
And I was
Wow.
like, "Oh, okay, goodbye." Like,
Yeah.
okay. And so, yeah, it was very quick and peaceful, but also like, "What's happening? Where are my babies?"
Disorienting, yeah,
Yeah, and there's so many things that I don't remember. I don't remember what happened after that. I think I took a nap on the table and was just like, "They're okay. They're all
yeah,
right. They're where they're supposed to be. I'm good. I'm gonna rest." And
yeah,
I remember waking up and I was nauseous and I didn't know where I was. And once I kind of came to, I was like, "Where are they?" And then
yeah,
before I knew it, my mom and husband and dad and little brother, everybody were coming in with photos on their phone of them, and it was just kind of like "Oh my gosh, I just woke up. I'm a mom. I don't know where my babies are," and I couldn't really see their facial,
yeah,
features with all they both had, CPAP on, and IVs, and it was just like it was almost kind of like I was disassociated. It was so weird. I almost felt like I was looking at a picture of a patient, almost like a
Right.
patient.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was weird. And I remember when I got to meet them, I changed a diaper without gloves. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, management is going to get on to me. This is an infect, like, you know what I mean? I was so like, oh my gosh, I'm changing this person's child. Like it
Mhm.
took me a while to kind of be like,
Yeah.
okay, you're not the nurse here. These are your babies. And
Yeah.
so even like kind of kissing them and like after I got comfortable, obviously I was like, okay, these are my babies and kissing them on the
Mhm.
lips and just soaking in that softness. But for a
Yeah.
while, for a little bit, I was like, "Oh my god, like, I'm gonna get in trouble." I have my nails done, like, I had my nails done for some reason, you can't have your nails done in the NICU. Oh,
Yeah,
which
it
I just
makes
told on
sense.
myself because I was
Yeah.
working and I had my nails on. Oops.
No,
Oh,
but that makes so much sense, and it's a little bit of a protection too, because if you
yeah,
were, like, really awake and coherent, like, what would that have been like that you
yeah.
kind of got yourself through it?
Yeah, it was it was so funny. I was so starving after I kind of came to, and I could not stop talking about a foot-long corn dog from Sonic. And so we make jokes about it now because that's all I wanted. And so I ate it and I was keeping it down and I'm like, "Yay, good." Like, ugh, nausea.
Yeah.
No big deal. I was like, "I want to eat and I want to go see my babies." And I remember I went up to, I believe it was my son's isolette because he was on the right. And I went and saw him and I got a puke bag and I just threw up and I could
Mm,
not stop vomiting. And I just, all the NICU nurses were like, we're not adult nurses. Like, we don't know how to
mhm.
do adult throw up or kind of help you. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm almost done. Like, I can feel it. I'm almost done. Like, just give me a second.
Oh,
And it was so funny because when I went to my daughter's isolette, I did the same thing. And I was like, look at me being
mm.
a fair twin mom, throwing up
Yes.
between meeting both of them. Like,
Y
that was just so disgusting, but also like, oh my gosh, it's fair. I threw up between,
do you
before holding both of them.
Do you feel like because you had such a deep trust in the healthcare team that you were able to, like, feel at peace and be
Absolutely.
okay with not, like, having to, like, you obviously begin advocating as soon as
Yeah.
you can, or you feel that there's something to advocate for, but you kind of
Yeah.
had that beautiful scenario in which you trusted that they were gonna be taken care of, which is the way
Absolutely.
everybody should feel, right?
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, obviously having the knowledge of a NICU nurse, knowing, okay, this is protocol, this is what happens post delivery, and looking at my babies and I'm like, okay, I see they have an IV, they're getting antibiotics because I didn't get tested for the group B, whatever. Like, I'm looking at
Yeah,
my babies and I'm seeing all of these things done and I know the why behind it. And
right.
so I'm comforted by, I don't even have to ask questions because I'm like, okay, this makes sense, this makes, like, okay, I get it, you
Yeah,
know what I mean? And
yeah.
then seeing them on CPAP, seeing their sat, seeing, everything, I'm like, I didn't even have to really, and there's so much peace in that knowledge because I can look at
Mm,
them and be like, oh, I know exactly why this is happening and this isn't happening. Where if I didn't have that knowledge, if you're a mom that one didn't plan for the NICU, because so many people don't, you know what I mean? You don't
right.
expect to have premature babies or, preeclampsia or whatever that leads your baby into the NICU, seeing your kid and you're like, oh my gosh, what is all of this? What is
Yeah.
happening? You know what I mean? Because it can be extremely intimidating. So I think the knowledge and I think having familiar faces of the people that I work with every day, the trust was just it was peace.
We'll be right back. Finding a solution to support and ease your child's daily bowel movements and improve everyday health can feel like a challenge. 30% of children struggle with constipation, and it can feel impossible trying to find a solution for your child. Especially if your child has food allergies or has a condition or illness, you want to feel good about the products you're selecting for your child. To me, finding a company whose products have the highest quality and natural ingredients is really important. Begin Health's flagship product, Growing Up Prebiotics, is a tasteless, textureless fine powder that easily mixes into water, juice, or smoothies. This makes it convenient for daily use without altering the flavor of your child's favorite beverages. You might ask yourself, what exactly does a prebiotic do? In the simplest of terms, the gut microbiome, aka bacteria, viruses, and fungi, are living organisms that are inside our intestines and on our skin. Begin Prebiotics feed these living organisms with the unique blend of human milk, oligosaccharides, HMOs, and fiber from chicory root inulin. Research has shown that the gut microbiome plays a significant role in the development of the immune system, digestion, and production of some vitamins and proteins. And get this, Begin Health's mission extends beyond nutrition, offering comprehensive resources for caregivers, including parent support groups and tools to create fun and engaging ways to get your kiddo to have smooth poos. To learn more about Begin Health's product, visit their website at beginhealth.com. And again, that's www.beginhealth.com. The growing little gut is the command center of early health, and here at Child Life On Call, we're helping to spread the word of investing in gut health positive routines starting at the earliest of ages. Child Life On Call podcast listeners get 25% off selected products, and you're definitely going to want to get the Poop Tracker game cards and stickers. You know, Child Life specialists love a good sticker. This applies to your first subscription order and one-time orders and limited to one use per customer. Head to beginhealth.com/childlifeoncall and use code childlifeoncall to get 25% off.
How do we get every mom to feel that way? The moms
Yeah.
who aren't in the medical field, the moms who don't know the neonatologist. And I'm so grateful and I'm so lucky and there's got to be a way. You know what I mean? There's got
Yeah.
to be a way to make sure that every parent feels that way.
Did you find yourself having to advocate kind of at all throughout the NICU stay, either for yourself or when you could be there or anything like that?
No, I don't. There wasn't anything that, and it's crazy because when I advocate for my patients, it's on. Like, I don't mess around. I'm like, I
Yeah.
hope someone sees this that's been like, "Oh, you're a nurse." And yeah, because I advocate tooth and nail. I'm like, and mom comes first. Mama gut, all
Mm,
of these things, what mom's comfortable with, what we're not. I mean,
right.
obviously within reason, but that's where we educate and that's why we try to
Right.
come on the same page. But when I advocate, I am like, I don't play. And so I didn't feel like I ever had that person come out in the
Yeah.
NICU for my own
Yeah.
babies. But again, I think everything that was being done. I expected it. And at
You
one
knew
point
it.
I was like, yeah. And at one point I was like, can I clock in? Because I'm doing everything. You know what I mean? I was doing their stuff. I was doing like, I literally just yelled at the nurse at the station. I was like, hey, here was the temp, the diaper weighed this much,
Yeah.
the pH of the G tube was this, you know what I mean? And so that,
Yeah.
they had a break almost just to be like, okay, cool. Like, do you need
Yeah.
anything?
Brittany's got it.
Brittany's got it. Like, I remember I had one baby in one hand and I was, messing with the other, grabbing them and, tandeming. And it was just like, and I think that gave me more control and peace and just kind of made me feel at
Mm.
home too, to just be like, no, I'm good. I've got it. Like, go sit down. Like, let me get you coffee and I'll
Oh,
do it.
that's such a powerful thing, and I think
Yeah.
we can really empower moms and dads in the NICU to have
Yeah.
more of that hands-on experience, and you gain
Absolutely.
confidence, and then
Yep.
it's like it's just such a beautiful relationship then between nurse
Yeah.
and caregiver. It's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so many things that parents can do. And I strive to be like, they're fluffy cartilage. You're not going to hurt them.
Yeah,
You're able to do this. You can move them. And if the IV kind of barely moves, or if your, NG tube barely moves, like, it's not a big deal. You don't have to tiptoe around them. Like, that's your baby. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Embrace them as if you are home. You know what I mean? And like, it breaks my heart that people have to be in a situation where you have to ask to hold your baby and ask to do these things, because some of that stuff is extremely intimidating. And
yeah.
if your kid's intubated, that's a whole different kind of,
Mm,
ball game as a parent, which I can't speak to. I can only speak to the nurse side of that. But
right.
I get it, you know what I mean? So educating, letting them be comfortable with everything that their child is attached to, because it's so intimidating. You know what I mean?
Do you often or have you found yourself, and, like, without breaking any boundaries or
Yeah.
crossing personal things, but with
Yeah.
families that you're now working with, you kind of have this level of, like, "I've been where you are.
Yeah.
I know how hard this is, and I
Always.
really see you."
I Those are my favorite conversations, and it's so funny because obviously being in pediatrics and NICU, it's about the baby, you're doing the things, whatever, and you'll ask mom, "Do you need anything? Okay, bye. Beep, 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 beep,
Yeah.
let me know if you have any questions." But I'm on such a deeper level with these moms now. Like, I'm having
Mm,
very just surreal, deep
mm,
conversations. Like, there's been several moms that I've just been in tears with, because it's just it brings me back being there, and it
Yeah.
establishes that rapport of, okay, this person knows what I've been through, and they will treat my baby like they treat their own, and I
Mhm.
promise that. Especially anytime a parent leaves, I'm like, they'll be treated like my own. I guarantee it. But there's so many moms that I've had the pleasure of talking to and sharing my own NICU experience, and I don't think that's crossing the boundary at all. I think that's,
No.
you know, I mean, in my opinion, hopefully,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
like, to me, just to say, like, I see this, I see you, I see how emotional it is, I see, like, how boring these 4 walls become and how it is just a mental task to get up and be leaking and find clothes that fit postpartum and being at bedside, not knowing what you're gonna hear, or kind of being anxious to get a phone call, from the hospital when it's just an update, but it could be something, or
You never
seeing
know.
a baby code in the room next to you, like, I see it knowing that could be your kid. It's just it's exhausting, and it takes a toll on your marriage too, like, the amount of in-depth conversations I've had with moms have been so amazing. It's been amazing.
What a gift you are to families that just feel so unseen, and it
Yeah,
can feel like everybody's just there to take care of the baby.
exactly.
And you almost can anticipate their needs before they have them.
Yes.
Like, I noticed that a lot in child life too. Like after I became a mom, like I'm making sure that when we're in a comfort position, like the mom's arm is like underneath there's a pillow there.
Yes.
that they have their
Yes.
water within reach. Like, is your phone
Exactly.
charged? Can I put
Yes.
it next to you? Just these
Absolutely.
small little things that like make a huge difference in the moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love that you mentioned that because I don't like to leave a room without, and then I encourage people like bring your photos, bring your nursery decor, nest, because
Yeah.
I got that nesting. I didn't get to nest. So I
Yeah.
nested in the NICU. I had my
Right.
kids' clothes organized. I had things. So I'm like, anything, like bring your diffuser, bring your stuff that makes you feel like home. Make sure, because I just remember all too well just the emotions of having somewhere to be, and it was around the holidays, so that was really hard. I was like, "I just want my babies here. I'm sick of
Mm.
being somewhere." And I remember too this pressure of, and I tell parents all the time, I'm like, "If you are having a bad day and you don't wanna say a word to me and you are peopled out, that is okay. Like,
Yeah.
please tell me. I will not have my feelings hurt." Because I remember, and it was almost kind of, I felt pressure on me just because these are my colleagues, this is my
Yeah.
workplace, this is my,
Yeah,
there were
almost to,
days
like,
where,
host or, like,
yes,
entertain.
yes, that is the best way to describe it. But a party that never ends, and you're like, I'm so tired. I really don't want to host anymore. I want
Yeah,
people out of my house. That is the best
yeah,
way to describe it. I'm totally taking that because that's so spot on.
y
And just people coming in and out and just, hey, hi, and I'm very bubbly. I feed off of people's energy, and that's how people know me. And I didn't want them to know me as this postpartum, like, ugh, just
yeah.
barely making it. But that's who I was. And there were so
Mhm.
many times where I'm like, and people were so sweet and they would come and check on us and things like that. But it's just a revolving door. And
It
so I
is.
always tell parents, I was like, if you are peopled out, if you do not have words, that is fine.
Tell
That is
us.
so
Yes.
fine. And there's been times
Communicate
where,
that.
exactly, I'm like, we can put a, like, I am the, like, I will put a thing on the door that says, do not enter unless you see the nurse. And I can determine if that is actually necessary or if something is just, whether it's a medical student. I mean, from the medical side, you're like, okay, it's always necessary. That's learning, blah, 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 blah. But from a
Yeah.
parent, I'm like, no, 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 no. You can come back in an hour. You can
We
come
can
back
do
when.
cluster care with parents too, right?
Exactly, absolutely, because it's
Yeah.
it's so hard and day in and day out and just revolving door of people and just wanting to have a bad day and just wanting to not talk to people. So there's so many things that I'm like, I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. Um, yeah.
In preparation for going home, I guess, what was the biggest learning curve for you?
I think for me, I was so ready to go home at all cost. The
Mm.
hospital gets so old real quick. And for me, I don't even know if there was a learning curve. It was just like tunnel vision of I want to get home. I want to get home.
Mm.
And it got to a point where, and this has been so beneficial to me too as a healthcare provider, is once we get past all the scary stuff, your kids breathing, we're getting past all the scary stuff. Now we're in the, okay, we're weaning off of oxygen. We're weaning off
Yeah.
of eat, we're weaning feeds, we're, fortifying feeds, we're getting them to learn that suck, swallow, reflex. And that's the most daunting part because it takes the longest. And so I love to prepare parents for that, where, okay, we're past the scaries, we're stable, but this is the part that really puts the mental to the test, because this is the stuff that you come in, and instead of taking 2 meals, they're taking 3, and we're PO gavaging the rest. You know what I mean? And these are the things that you were like almost nails on a chalkboard of like, oh my God, this is taking
Oh,
forever.
yes.
And you don't want to be like impatient with your kiddo. Like I remember going in and being like, he only took 5. Like he's supposed to be taking 13. I don't want to use
Yeah.
his tube. Like, please get us out of here. And so I always prepare patients for that, because same with weaning on oxygen. I mean, we've had kids go home on a quarter of a liter, like, and they
Right.
need it. But that weaning is just, I mean, it's just miserable. So preparing families for that, of this is the part where we stick together. This is the part where we need that encouragement, because the scaries are gone, but this is the daunting part too.
Yeah.
And that's something I've never noticed as a provider, because for me, I'm like, oh, he's a feeder grower. That's awesome. Like I get
Yeah.
stable,
Right.
perfect baby today. But to the
Yeah.
parent, that's the hardest part. That is the part that is like, we're
It's one
so close, but
day
we're so far.
to being it's one day to this discharge day, and you don't know when that day
Yeah.
is, and
It's
it's
so
just
unknown. And
you're
that's what's
living
so
your life
crazy.
by 3 hours and
Yes. That's so true, and it doesn't matter if your baby was discharged after a week or after 30 days or after, a couple months. That unknown draws it out, and so, like, for me, we were there, I wanna say a little over 30 something days, which in hindsight, I'm like, "Thank God we were only there for 30 days, that was nothing. Why was I so mentally drained? Why was I so affected? Why?" But of course, your hormones regulate, time passes, hindsight's always 20/20, but I'm like, Brittany, stop complaining. Like, be lucky. You know what I mean? But I remember the darkest, just not knowing and having that drug out of like, is today the day? What are we waiting for? What are we looking for? What percentage of their feeds? Did we gain weight? Are we 3 steps forward, 8 steps back?
yeah.
And so even if your kid's discharged in a week, that feels like the longest week of your life. And then we
It
gaslight
does.
ourselves later. And you're like,
Yeah.
it wasn't that bad. Why did it feel so terrible in the moment? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's been something that's super beneficial to me, is yes, I see as a healthcare provider where I'm like, okay, hey, this is a stable kid. We're going to PO, speech is going to come by. We'll do all the things. But as a parent, being there for them during those times is so
Mm,
crucial.
yeah. Well, oh my goodness, I wish every NICU family could have you as their nurse because just
You're so sweet.
somebody who gets it,
Yeah,
and because you have I also think, like, families see the team camaraderie
yeah,
around them, and it's like, "Okay, well, if Brittany trusts this respiratory therapist, then I trust this
yeah,
respiratory therapist, and if Brittany does this or
absolutely.
that, like, if Brittany says she's gonna go have a conversation with this neo,
I
I
know
know
that
it's
that's
gonna
going to
be had."
happen. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's just really powerful.
yeah,
Um, so talk a little bit about where people can find your books. I mean, like, what's your magic
yeah,
wand? Like, what do you want to
yeah.
have happen?
So, yeah, so I have my website, which is thriftpublicationcompany.com. You can directly purchase things there. I have a NICU journal that's actually based off of my NICU report that all of our nurses use. So
Oh,
it takes kind of the scary stuff out of it, like vent settings and specific stuff like that, that parents don't, those things change every second. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But it's based off our report. So people who are in the NICU a long time can document and kind of stay on track of things and wait and just, so I have that. I've got a coloring book. I've got my book, Cradles of Courage, Adventures in the NICU. I'm working on something really exciting with that. It's so premature, so I hope I can make it happen. I think I kind of
Yeah.
mentioned it to you. So I'm so excited, and I'm hoping to bring that into the child life space, because it's going to be really cool. I'm excited. But yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. It's at Thrift Pub Co. I'm always posting direct links to the book. It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, it's on Walmart. So I guess the easiest way to do is literally just type in Cradles of Courage Adventures in the NICU, and it'll pop up somehow, some way with a direct link to buy it.
Sounds awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Ew.
sharing your personal journey and also your professional insight, which is
Yeah,
like coupled together, just such a beautiful gift for families. So
absolutely.
thank you for being here with me.
Yay. Thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you know.
You guys, I have the best news. If you didn't hear it at the beginning of the episode, Support Spot, our app, is now available for every parent. You no longer need a hospital code to log in. So, go ahead, go to childlifeoncall.com/support-spot. So go ahead and go to childlifeoncall.com/support-spot and download our app today. Hospitals and child life specialists, yes, we are still partnering with you if you want to customize content or provide this app to your families free of charge. We're so grateful that you're here. When you rate and review this podcast, it helps other families be able to find us. So let's keep doing that, and I will see you again here next week.